like to contact the show, send us an email at liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com or get involved in the conversation on social media. Join the Pearl Jam Podcast community group on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at liveonfourlegspod.
I'll say something we haven't said for a long time. Hello, Los Angeles. It's the Forum. It's fabulous. I don't know, to us it's fabulous. To us it's not Great Western, it's not Mutual Omaha, it's not Butterfinger, it's just the fabulous Forum. It's nice to be here. And since we were last in this town, we wrote a bunch of other songs, so we're gonna play a bunch of those for you, and this is one of them. It's called And Away We Go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Matt fucking Cameron in the drum. Mr. Boom Gasper. You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
Hey everybody now, welcome to Live on Four Legs, a definitive live Pearl Jam podcast, and welcome to Tour Week, everybody. Ooh, we've been waiting for this for a very, very long time, and as this episode airs, we're the day after San Diego, and we'll explain some things and why this is airing after, and we'll get into that stuff as the episode gets along, probably pretty early on. But look, we are in tour territory. We promised this for the last couple weeks that we would be doing cities that the band is going to be playing on this tour the last 3 weeks. If you haven't been paying attention, if you still need to listen, we did the San Diego 2013 show, we did the Phoenix 2000 show, and then we did last week the Sacramento 1995 show, and here we are. The whole plan for this month of May was to kind of catch up on a series of shows that we had a couple shows done for it, and then we had a couple that we didn't. And now it's time to catch up because this whole month of May, look, and we got lucky with this, that I'll explain in a second, but this whole month of May, we are doing the Vault Series shows that we haven't covered before. And today, like I said, lucky, we're doing the Great Western Forum because in a couple days, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, that's exactly where they will be for a 2-night stay. Like I said, can't get much better than that. Randy Sobel over here, John Farrar over there.
Hello. Yeah, that's good timing. I like how that worked out. I mean, they're going to be in this building.
Right.
Very shortly. It's crazy to think that it's here. Like, we waited this long and it's here.
Yeah. And you know what? It sort of felt normal. It feels like there's been hype and anticipation, but there hasn't been like the nervousness. And I don't know if that kind of comes with seeing, because we're recording this before San Diego happened, so I don't know if it comes with seeing people there and kind of trying to find feeds. And you know, the minute that I see things for merch, like that's when it's just like a cautious anxiety happens over me that I'm like, oh, there's merch news, and like it's a trigger inside me to think like, oh, gotta go wait online at this point and like prepare myself for all that. And I don't know if that trigger really happened, and I think it's easier when my show's being at the end of this little leg here that I can kind of scope things out. But there are a lot of people that are going to these first couple, and they I'm sure are in that spot right now that are just like, holy crap, like it's now time. We got to get back into this routine that we really haven't had for, 4 years since 2018. And even then they weren't following them around the country. It was an arena tour. You have to go back to 2016 to have any of that.
Yeah, I think you had a little tease last year too with going to See Here Now. So you kind of
Sure.
like you've dipped your toes in the water a little bit,
Mhm.
but now it's time to dive right in.
Which we are. And I think that, look, I've mentioned this on the show before that the biggest disappointment about this show is that we haven't been able to do what we intended to do. And that is to be able to react to shows and be on tour and being able to meet people. And that was the whole kind of purpose for this podcast and putting it together. And really, See Here Now, we were able to do sort of some of that, but there was also some cautiousness with COVID and everything like that. And I know that COVID is now spiking in a lot of areas, including California. So of course, there's some carefulness that needs to be taken down there. But yeah, I think now we're kind of settled in. We're kind of settling in, and we can really start to do what we always intended to do, and that's take this on the road. I'm very excited, and the idea for a documentary will kind of, I guess, sort of imitate that. And yeah, like, what can I say? First of all, it's seeing them. Second of all, it's meeting everybody and just being around the atmosphere. And third of all, it's just a trip. It's, if you like touring around the country and going to places that you've never been. I've never been to California before, never been to Vegas. So this is all new stuff that I'm seeing, and it's all new experiences, and all with people that I'm going to really enjoy my time with. So yeah, ready for all of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be stuck here, kind of living vicariously through all of it, through everybody's videos and streams and posts. So even for those of us, and some of you out there would like me, like you're not going to this, you may have tickets for later on, or maybe you didn't get tickets at all. But just the fact of like sitting down and like finding the streams and watching it and following set list and all of that is I'm excited just for that part again, just to feel, the excitement of it again and start following it just to see what happens. We talk about these shows every week. It's going to be very, very cool. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it happen again in real time.
Let's talk a little bit about our plans as a podcast and our plans as a website too, because we've been mentioning it every week, but now I think we need to really kind of explain, because I think maybe sometimes when we get to the Patreon aspect of the show, there are people that are like, okay, get me back into the story of the show, which I look, I don't blame you at all, but I just want to explain to everybody what's going to be happening. And I think let's take it from the website aspect first. Like, we've been saying this for so long, this is going to be the place to be if you want tour coverage and if you want tour news. And I don't know who's been following along in the past week. I ask you guys to keep checking in and keep a bookmark on it, because there really is, this whole past week, we've had something brand new up on the page, whether it's been an article about the fantasy leagues that we've done, or I wrote something on milestones that Dave Jantosh from livefootsteps.org helped me with. And then we had one that Mark Kirby wrote about 5 songs that he thought would be continued to be played and 5 songs that he thought would be off set list. So we tried to ramp up a lot of content for this and really get hyped for this tour. And I don't see a lot of other places doing this and building the excitement for it. So the goal here is that after every show, obviously it's not going to be every morning when you wake up, from the East Coast. If you wake up at 7 o'clock on the East Coast, that's 5 hours after the show is going to end. Like, we're not going to get it to you that quickly, unfortunately, but maybe on day one we will. We'll try to figure something out to really get San Diego stuff. And again, if this is Wednesday, you're listening to this Wednesday, go check liveonfourlegs.com right now. There might be something up. You never know. Just like, there might be coverage of it and just a review of what happened that night and some details and things like that. So people, and I know social media is just bombarded with people talking and stuff like that, but is it really bombarded with the stories? Well, they kind of get disconnected sometimes. If you want the full story, the Concertpedia is going to be the place where we're going to be able to tell them.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to to seeing how those play out. And, whether it's you and I doing it, if we can find live streams and things like that, we'll be doing our best. But if we can, we've got people part of the podcast family that are going to every show, so we'll be counting on them. And I just can't wait to feel that excitement that comes through the writing and the reviews when it's immediate like that. Like, it's going to be so different than writing about stuff that happened in 2013 or 2016 or even earlier than that, because you've got a distance from it. These are going to be fresh, and I just can't wait to see what comes out and what people are putting down and what happens at these shows.
Absolutely on that, because yeah, we're doing all of what hasn't been done before in kind of reverse a little bit. I think right now some of the 2013 stuff is slowly starting to get put out, and that's interesting for a lot of people that went to those shows or didn't go to those shows and wants to learn more. That's great, but everybody wants to know what's going on now. And we want to talk about what's going on now the most, because we haven't had a now in so long. So just trying to take advantage of all of it. Let's talk about podcast-wise and what we're doing podcast-wise, because obviously you get on your feed today and you see that Great Western Forum is up there, and it's not a San Diego review or anything like that. Tomorrow we'll have the review, because like you said, we are on the East Coast, the shows are on the West Coast, so it creates this sort of disconnect where the shows are going to end at like 2:30 in the morning over here. And while I expect to be up for some of them, it's impossible to be able to record a podcast that night and have it out for the morning. So what we're going to do is we're going to record it the night after and then put it out immediately in the morning. Now let's explain some of this. So the San Diego one will come out tomorrow on the 5th, and that will be to all the normal platforms. After that, they're all going to our Patreon account. And the reason why that we're doing that is because for so long, that's what we had promised to the people that were so kind enough to donate and put in their time with our Patreon. That was the big thing that we promised for them, that we would get them exclusive instant reaction content. And like we said the whole entire time, look, it's about getting the content, and it's not about the donation. It is a subscription service, and that does help us out a lot. But for $1 or for $10 for the whole entire year, for all the tour reaction stuff, that is going to get you exactly what you want if that's what you're looking for. So we want to be able to kind of make this stuff as approachable as possible. And I think because there are so many people, we have over 130 patrons right now, just like kind enough to pitch in as little or as much as they please. And this is such a small thing that we do, that people that are interested in this, that want to donate to what we're doing, is just, again, still kind of wake ourselves up from this. But I think it would be unfortunately detrimental to them if we didn't give them something as a thank you. So that's not to say that we don't want to give you guys something as a thank you. I think that what we'll perhaps do is we'll kind of do like the San Diego, and then we'll do like a mid-tour review, and then we'll do an end-of-tour review if that's sort of satisfies the whole thing. And if you can't contribute over there right now, then trust me, we totally understand. But after every show, look, it'll be the 2 LA nights, and then we'll do one where we'll record and review both of those 2 LA, and then we'll do one for Phoenix, and we'll do one for both Oaklands, and kind of on and on and on and on. So it'll all be over there. And again, like, if that's what you're looking for content wise, I think it's worth it. And I guess it's bias coming out of both of us, but I feel like we are indebted to the people that are so kind enough to donate to us that we can't stiff them on this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we'll be talking about how the tour's going on the regular shows during this part. But if you want like the real deep dive, and you want the analysis, and you want, the instant reactions and stuff like that, then Patreon's the place to be.
Yep, absolutely. So patreon.com/liveonfourlegs, or go to liveonfourlegs.com, which I hope you're all doing, because that's important too, because all of that doesn't come with any sort of donation. You can go on that and basically get sort of the written version of what we're doing podcast-wise, in a way. There's a button on every single page where you can click Become a Patron. You can do it that way. And again, anything is much appreciated, from $1 to $10 for the year, to the $5 tier, to the $10 tier for the year, or just for a month or something like that. That everything is appreciated. And look, if you like the content, then it's an added bonus for you. Again, all of it that we're doing is for your entertainment. That's it. We want to tell stories. We want to talk. So it's a good band to talk about, obviously. All right, so hopefully you guys all enjoy that, and hopefully we've built up the tour as big as humanly possible. However, like we mentioned before, this is a vault month, so to speak. We're going to do the 4 of them that we haven't done. I believe we've done Moline, we've done the Moore Theater one, we've done the DC Constitution Hall one, we've done Vic Theater. Well, technically Atlanta has to be thrown in there too. We did Atlanta a very long time ago, and there's one, Seattle 93.
Yep.
So we did all of those, and now we only have 4 that we have to catch up on. Great Western Forum from 1998. This is the first of the 2 shows. They had never played at this legendary venue before going to these 2 shows in 1998. This is actually the return to Los Angeles for the first time in, I think, like 6 years. And you have to kind of go back, because 1995, they did California, but they didn't do LA. They didn't have a venue that wasn't a Ticketmaster venue in LA. That's my guess. And they did San Diego, they did San Jose, and they did either more of the Northern California venues like Sacramento, like we did last week, or San Francisco. And then you have to go back to 1993, which they did play in Los Angeles, but those were really small kind of things where they only played a couple shows. Like they played at the Whiskey, and they only did a couple songs at the Whiskey. Nobody really knows what that story is, and nobody really knows the story of what happened when they played the Viper Room either. There's no information on that, but that was after the 93 VMAs. You'd probably have to go back to like Irvine at Lollapalooza to really get an actual Los Angeles show, but they did a ton really early on in 91 and 92. Yeah. They did a ton at that time. So this was exciting for them to get back to that spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge city, and like I think the talking point that we always bring up, and like, you know, even people that go there, is like, oh, the Los Angeles crowd is the worst crowd in California. They've always had good crowds in San Diego. They always have good crowds in San Francisco. But the talking point has always kind of been like, oh, LA is kind of like it's kind of a lazy crowd. It's a Hollywood crowd. But this show, I think, does not follow that narrative. I think this show, we're going to find out, that we're going to talk about, has a really good crowd and a really energetic crowd. And this is a great show. I think they did a good job picking this to be a vault. Or again, that's going to be another thing we're going to talk about is why this one.
Yeah, I agree. This was a really good selection for the Vault series. And, you know, there were some times where the crowd was audible. And look, I don't have this Vault, so I wasn't able to study it that way. Next week's another story. I'll get into that later. But I didn't really get to study it like that, so I had to go off of YouTube. And it sounded like that was the Vault audio a little bit, but it was tough to hear the crowd in some spots. But it wasn't like it was a bad crowd at all. However, you have to think of where they're playing. They're playing at the Forum. You want to call it the Great Western. You want to call it the Fabulous Forum, as Ed would say at a point in this, that, oh, don't call it this, don't call it that. And I believe it's called the Kia Forum now, which is just totally lame. If you look at Pearl Jam's website, though, where it says the dates that they're about to play, it only says the Forum. It doesn't have any sponsorship name to it.
Interesting.
So I think that goes to show the same sort of things that they were thinking in 1998. But yeah, that's a legendary venue for music. It's a legendary venue for basketball. Like tons of Lakers championships were won there. And you have to go back to like some of the early 60s shows, that like early Rolling Stones shows that happened. Well, actually, this was the night before Altamont. Now that I think about it, they played a show at the Forum with like Ike and Tina Turner and B.B. King, I believe. So like that was massive. That was a massive moment. And there have been, Ed will mention in the show that The Who played there, and of course, you know, mentioning that X and Tenacious D opening up for them, which we'll get into a little bit later as well, like both being kind of Los Angeles acts that never played there before, was very important to them. So yeah, this is a pretty big deal that they're playing this place.
You know how they're connected to NBA and basketball. I was watching this thinking like, oh, they're thinking about Magic Johnson and Kareem and Worthy
Yeah.
and like all those guys. Yeah, like they had to be in the forefront of their minds.
It's too bad Sweet Lou wasn't written at the time because you think it would have
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
chance to be
I had
played
to wait
there.
a couple of years. Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, if they didn't do it at Ohana, maybe you could kind of see a world where they would have done it. And I don't think they will. I think after Ohana, they were like, yeah, this is a reminder that this never happens again. So I don't think they will do it this weekend in LA, but crazier things have happened, I suppose. Any other thoughts? Like, this is, early 1998. This is the first leg of the tour. And kind of at the end, I think it ends on the 22nd when they go up to Seattle. So it's still very early on in the Cameron era.
Yeah, it's still very early. I mean, he'd only been in the band for what, 2 months at this time, barely.
Yeah, barely.
So still getting, I mean, they hadn't quite opened up the set list like they would later on. Like, this is a show where you're not getting a lot of deep cuts here. They're not quite there yet, but I mean, there's a couple here that I think might be in the running for best versions ever. So it's going to be something definitely worth the effort to go and seek out that vault if you don't have it, or definitely an occasion to break it out if you haven't listened to it in a while. This is kind of one I think is underrated a little bit. If you think of vault shows, this might not be the first one that you think of, but
Right.
it's up there as far as quality and just a fantastic show.
It's fabulous, I suppose. Let's get into it now. It kind of creeps in with Sometimes. That's the opener of this show. And, I kind of felt like with this version of Sometimes, and you don't really feel like this way with Pearl Jam openers, this was just sort of like a real quick, let's do like a little tune-up. Let's do a little warm-up song before getting, usually it's like, let's kind of hit an emotional edge. Let's really kind of knock them down before we really get to knock them down. But this was just, felt really quick. It was just them getting loose, them getting familiar with the surroundings, because I'm sure they go out on stage for this and, looking around and they're like, okay, all right, look at the banners, we're here, it's a pretty big deal. So it felt like it was just their way to get their feet wet with this.
Yes, I agree. Again, that's the thing with Matt being new. It's like, let's ease him into this and figure out, they're still kind of working with a tight set list, like I mentioned. So it's not like they can go bust out something crazy to start with. I'm sure Ed probably wanted to, we'll see what happens this weekend when they go out there, if there's any reference to that. But you just want to get your feet wet, like I said, and yeah, this gets going real fast.
We might as well make note of it now, but they did play the Forum in 2006, and one of those shows, I believe, was the set list that Patrick Warburton put together. I don't remember which night it was, but I believe it was one of those two shows.
Cool. Makes sense.
That'll be at some point in the future when we can get Patrick Warburton on the show. Then, because we need to get him to talk about how he put his set together. So we're holding on to that one. Anybody have any connections? liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up.
Please.
All right, now we're about to get into the good stuff. Corduroy, it's just got the build in the beginning, just very methodical. It gradually gets there, it gradually builds, and then in the big moments, you hear like a sudden soar at one point. You're like, okay, now this is going. It wasn't like it was going before. It was just building to that moment where it was just taking off.
Yeah, the thing that stands out to this is Stone. Stone is feeling it on this, and like sometimes had like a nice kind of groove to it, where it had kind of a build and then it kind of fell down, and it was kind of like I said, like a little warm up. But Corduroy, this starting this section, all these songs are fantastic, and there's even a moment where Jeff and Ed kind of go back to Cameron and playing off him a little bit. You know, we always talk about how they do when they're kind of they're locked in. And you could tell right from the beginning, Corduroy 1998 is one of the best. And yeah, just a fantastic version. This is one of the highlights of the night.
We have to mention, you mentioned Stone, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the duck waddle strumming,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the bunny hops, and, you know, I missed it, and I watched this twice, and I missed it on the second turnaround. I can't remember what song it was, but McCready, for like about 5 seconds or so, is imitating the duck waddle. Yeah, I don't remember which song it was, but he looks over
yeah.
at Stone, he's like, wah, wah, wah. He does it for a second. I don't know if he got a laugh out of him or not, but yeah, I believe it was intentional. But
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sure, yeah.
You know, Ed's voice is a really good conversation for the show. I thought his voice was excellent at this. And, you know,
perfect.
1995, he's throwing 100 mile per hour fastballs. And of course, fastballs are, you know, everybody likes the strikeouts. But the finesse pitchers are always the ones in the end that kind of shock you, the ones that get it done. And I feel like at this show, he was still throwing heat. He was still throwing 99, 100, but he was starting to put in some changeups with his voice. He was starting to use some sliders and starting to find some other pitches where he was able to kind of build that rasp. But you think of a Corduroy back in 1995, it had all rasp. It had nothing but scream and holler. Here, he's able to switch it up, and I think that's the big difference between what was happening then, what's happening now, and why he's able to kind of still reserve his voice a little bit now.
98, there was a maturation going on, and he's getting in his 30s now. You can't push it like you did before, but he picks his spots. He picks good spots, obviously.
Right.
This Corduroy, too, I mean, talked about, you know, Cameron still being the new guy here. He has a part during the build-up to the solo that you would have thought he'd been playing this song since the very beginning. It's just spot on, perfect.
Yeah, Matt was great in this. There's another moment that I noticed some point in the show where he had a fill, and you're like, this feels like he's been there since day one. Like, It feels like a perfect match. So, Corduroy, great. Hail Hail is following up. Another excellent performance. I feel like so many songs at the show have matched very close to being what their top performance is, or like have kind of raised above the bar. Whether it's different or not from any other performance is sort of irrelevant, but good songs are good songs. That's how I put a lot of this show together, was that I might have heard a very similar version to this one before, but it doesn't matter because that version that I had heard before was pretty damn good, and so was this.
Yeah, this sets the bar very, very high. And there's one song that's going to come up later in the set that's a little rough, that kind of doesn't match up to the rest of them, but it's just one little dip and then it gets right back up. But, oh, Hail Hail, like, there's a part where Jeff, in the bridge, he's doing a lead that follows the vocals. I've never heard this before, but he's like matching Ed's vocals on the bass, like following the same riff, and it's just amazing. I don't know if that's an improv that he's doing or if that's something he's done before and I've just never noticed, but it's just perfect. And then he goes over and rocks out with Cameron. There's a bunch where he is bouncing up and down like it's 5 or 6 years earlier.
Jeff has a very energetic show. Mike has a very energetic show here. Must we mention that Mike is wearing a skirt?
Fan of cross-dressing.
Yeah.
This is a good one to watch.
Do you know how often, or if he had done this often? Because it feels like there are a couple times here and there, but this is the first one that I've seen that he has a skirt on.
You know, going back and, you know, reading through Five Horizons, you'll see it pop up occasionally. I can't think of a specific one.
All right, Hail Hail takes you into 2 Yield after this, and it's really not fair to put them together, so I'm not going to. They both deserve their own space. A lot of these songs deserve their own time in the sun here, especially this one. It's Brain of Jay. And just that beginning, to get it in the beginning, that Mike is just strumming a couple chords out before actually starting the chords. It's just kind of like a small anticipation builder, like, okay, what is that? Oh, okay, we know what that is. And right out of that, you hear Ed say, back and to the left, back and to the left. It's, of course, a clear reference to Keith Hernandez and the Magic Loogie, of course. Everybody knows that. No, it is obviously the JFK reference for this being the JFK song. But I said before that there's some finesse to Ed's voice. This one, he's throwing fastballs. This one is a full fastball song. He has the fierceness in his voice on this, and it's just absolutely perfect. I had been looking a long time for just absolutely perfect versions of this. And you know how you, for some songs, you're like, okay, where's the one? Which one is the one? And for Brain and Jay, it's tough because there's no like moving pieces. It is what it is. You need to find the right amount of energy bottled up. This is really close if it's not it. I still feel like I have to listen to 100 more, but this is very, very close.
This is the one for me. Like, I've never heard a version as good as this one. I would put this up as the number one performance of Brain and Jay, hands down.
Yeah, look, like I said,
it's got everything you want. Like, when it hits that bridge, it's like the wave crashing like right there. It's that good. Like, I don't think they've ever played it as good as this.
yeah, and look, I want to go back and listen to all 129 versions to really figure this out and really solidify in my brain that this one is the best. But oh, if it's not top 3, then I don't know why we haven't talked about other Brain and Jay performances being absolute lights out. Because to me, I don't think you can do better than this. Stone's solo is blistering. I think this might have been the one that I mentioned, Matt's fill-in between the bridge. Just mind-blowing. Incredible. Yeah, one of the best. One of the best. And I'm not ready to say it's the one, but boy, I'm giving it the rose. It's it's going on to the next round. Let's put it that way. And then In Hiding comes next. And you know, In Hiding may have started off a little tentative at the start, but as it goes, it fills out. And I think the intention, of course, is to really build up towards the massive moment. Of course, the massive moment in Hiding is the chorus. Ed's voice is angelic on this. It is pristine, it's perfect, it's soaring, and it even has a little echo on it to make it sound fuller, to make it sound bigger, kind of how it is on the record. And like I said, there's some songs in this there where he's going to growl, where you're going to hear that growl, and there's going to be songs where you're going to hear the best of his singing voice. This might be the best example of that.
Like backstage before the show, they were like, hey guys, let's just go play every song perfectly. Let's just play everything better than we've ever played it before. Guys are like, all right, well, sounds good to me. Let's just do it. So all of these songs, it's like, these are all top performances. And like you see, yes, like this set list doesn't have the rarest of songs. There's not the deep cuts that you're going to find, but they picked it because they know, listening back to this, that like every song, with the exception of one, is performed better almost than they've ever done it before. This is just top notch. In these first 5, like there's not a bad moment, not even an average moment in the bunch. Like this is all just fantastic, A+, top to bottom.
As far as the way that the set is constructed, what songs they decided to choose, it's not like you can really pick a song that's sort of a downer, but there is no quote-unquote down moments in this, if you know what I mean. Like, it's all
it's balanced very energy. Well, too. This main set especially has a very good balance, like 2 10 songs, 3 verses, 3 Vitalogy, 3 No Code, and a bunch of Yield, like for the new record. Like, you're getting a mix of everything that they've done up to that point. It's just masterclass.
Yup, In Hiding, absolutely a part of that, along with Brain and Jay. Like, we're just going to kind of continue on this train. If we have to be a broken record about it, then we'll be a broken record. But look, we won't break the vault. Let's just put it that way. We won't break the vault on this. what I noticed, and I mentioned before, that I didn't think that there were too many crowd moments, but definitely after In Hiding, there was a big one. So you're getting that momentum, and I don't know if they expected to have that after In Hiding, but you do. And then you're going into Even Flow right after that. And think of that energy that's built up from everything that's happened up until that point, and then you get a big song moment.
Yeah, I think after the two new songs, I mean that's very well done to go back and be like, okay, here's one that you know, but this isn't a paint by numbers even flow. This isn't like 2010's even flow where it's like, okay, well Mike's gonna do his thing for a few minutes and Ed's gonna take a break. Mike's solo, it's like he knows that like they're on a good wave right now and he knows that they're in a good groove. The solo is less than a minute long on this. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna get in and get out, and we're gonna keep it moving because I just can't wait to get to the next thing. Like if he had done a 2 or 3 minute solo here, it might have kind of killed the momentum that they had. But he's like, no, I'm just gonna ride this and get in and get out.
That's exactly, I think, why a lot of people have a problem with Even Flow, because it is too long and the solo just lasts for a long time. Not to say that it's not amazing, but it's because I think you kind of expect that 30-song set to happen and you're just waiting in that interim, like 6, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, upwards to 10 or 11, that it could just take a long time to get to that moment, especially if you're following them around on tour. This is the 9th time you've seen Even Flow. You can kind of be rolling your eyes. I don't think you should. I don't think you should take the bathroom break, but yeah, there is a sweet spot for the solo, and I think this has it. Absolutely. Not extended for 5 minutes or anything, but yeah. right there.
Like imagine if this weekend if they come out and the even flow solo is less than a minute long. People will be like,
I don't think
oh
it would
my God.
happen, no.
No, but like
different
like,
era.
oh my God, like yeah, like get in and get out, man. Like, oh, this is a standout too. The 10 songs here, I think, it's not something you normally think of being the highlights at a 1998 show, but the 10 songs here are all very good.
All right, Ed takes the mic here, and thanks X, and thanks Tenacious D. And it's very funny to talk about Tenacious D. I'm going to make up a reference in a second that's going to be totally obscure. But Tenacious D isn't really Tenacious D yet. They're just kind of a funny duo. They're a
nobody
comedy
knew them.
duo.
Yeah.
No.
This is pre-High Fidelity. Like Jack Black wasn't a big star. Like
Preschool of Rock and all that.
The Five Horizons review just mentions like, oh, it's these two funny guys with acoustic guitars. Like,
Yeah.
hey, how about that? Like, yeah, nobody knew who they were.
You might have. You might have knew who they were if you saw the movie Biodome. Yes, I brought up Biodome. Maybe one of the worst movies of all time.
I haven't seen this movie, so...
Yeah. You've never seen it's a Pauly Shore and Billy Baldwin movie. Like, it's pretty awful.
That's why I've never seen it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was, 10 when it came out, so that's right in the wheelhouse for a 10-year-old. Yeah, it's one of the worst movies of all time, but I remember it because their little section in it, they were like, on a college campus, like playing their guitars, and they were like, yeah, we gotta save some trees. And I think I didn't even know about that until a friend was like, yeah, go back and look at it, back in early 2000s when, somebody had the VHS of it. Might have been me. I don't have it anymore. Let's put it that way. And then you see him right there. You're like, holy shit. That was like 8 years before that time.
1996.
Yeah, 96, right.
Yeah.
So they were kind of nothing then and sort of figuring it out. And look, they had their own movie, they had their own show. Jack Black, of course, well known, and Kyle Gass is honestly a really, really great guitar player. I don't think he gets enough credit for being as good as he is. He's phenomenal. The things he does on acoustic guitar should not be done by human beings. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, give Tenacious D their credit. It says, I'll say something I haven't said in a long time. Hello, Los Angeles. Like we said before, I haven't really played Los Angeles proper, even though they're in Inglewood. I don't know all the suburbs or anything like that, but we'll leave it at that. It's the Forum. It's fabulous. To us, it's fabulous. It's not Great Western. It's not Mutual Omaha. It's not Butterfinger. Hope it wasn't called the Butterfinger Forum. It's just the fabulous form. It's nice to be here. Since we were last here in this town, we wrote a bunch of other songs, and we're going to play them for you. This one is called, and kind of gestures over to McCready. He's like, well, obviously. So the next three, this is really like you're sandwiching even flow between two yield songs in front and two yield songs behind it. So Given a Fly, MFC, and then Not For You is going to kind of be the anchor of those two. And I think Given a Fly, pacing sweet spot. We talk about that all the time, how this was really the time where it was getting highlighted and getting played at sort of still the way that Jack would play it, but Matt was starting to kind of figure out how to make it his own. So the pacing is still right. Very good Given a Fly. MFC felt very quick. It was kind of soft and easy at first, and then kind of a little bit closer to what the album felt like, and then sort of, again, sandwiched in between these two, it doesn't really get a highlight. However, I think the highlight of these three is easily Not For You.
Yes, I agree. Given to Fly, again, fantastic. 1998 Given to Fly, it's perfect. MFC, I noticed too, and like the video's a little bit grainy, but you can tell I would know this guitar anywhere. I've never seen Ed play a Rickenbacker before, but he's playing one on MFC, and it sounds very, very good.
Didn't we talk about
I
him playing a
love the
Rickenbacker
picture on this.
recently? Like on a recent episode?
Maybe, but like this is new for me. Those guitars are so iconic, and like the look of them is so unique, but the sound on them is just incredible. And like you can tell when he starts that MSC riff that like, oh yeah, this is the guitar sound that you've been waiting for on this. But yeah, MFC is just fast and tight. Like again, one of the one of the best versions. I mean, they picked this for a reason. Somebody knew what they were doing when they went back to this one. But yeah, it all leads up again to Not For You. When Not For You gets to that quiet part, like again, the groove that they find themselves in. Like I know I've said that, for a lot of these songs, but like just locked in completely. And another Stone solo that just tears the roof off. And then that original outro, Modern Girl had not been written yet, so we don't have that. But I just love this Not For You again. One of the best ones I've heard in a long time.
What I'm going to mention about Not For You is that at that time, I don't think it could happen now to Not For You. I think that when it comes up now, it's sort of a nostalgia moment. But this is so close to Vitalogy that in this spot right here, the 9 spot, which usually at most shows now you expect either Even Flow or a Daughter to go in, this is kind of taking the place of like a #1 hit song. And I think it's earned it, and I think it's deserved it because of sort of coming off of the time. And obviously 1998 is a little bit less tense for the band, but it's still one of those that kind of brings out that 1995 energy, 1994 energy out of it. So to me, the masterclass of setlist creating, they put this here to be a highlight in the set. And that's what's so incredible about this version.
Why don't you
Ed, after Not For You, says, thanks. That wasn't for you, by the way, but this one is. And that gets into Wishlist, which is going to be followed up by Jeremy Do the Evolution and Dissident, which we'll all kind of get into a package in just a second. Wishlist does have the disco ball, which gets a huge pop from the crowd after the first chorus. And, you know, I think there's a tie-in here when Ed says, this one is for you, that he says, as fortunate as you. I don't know if that was on the spot or what, but he makes the connection there, I think. Ed does the whole Ebo thing at the end and then does a little bit of an improv, which he doesn't quite land some lyrics at first on the first time around, but second try he does.
Yeah. He can't think of anything to say at first. Like, you know, sometimes it would get political or it would be kind of sweet. And like, I think he was just going through, like, I'll come up with something. And then like, nothing's there. But then he ends up talking about X, which is always a good fallback.
I wish I was in a... I wish I was. I wish I was in a band and they open for X. I wish I hope you're next.
How often, especially in 1998, this is just the tour for them opening up for their heroes, from Iggy Pop to Cheap Trick to Sonic Youth, Frank Black, whoever else. Like, this is them opening up.
Mudhoney,
Yeah, right. Heroes and Friends. It's just, it's great to have that privilege. Let's just put it that way. Jeremy Do the Evolution Dissident, rock solid version of Jeremy. Great one to kind of pick back up on after Wishlist. You kind of dip down in the set a little bit after some really good, energetic ones. Jeremy's going to bring you back up. However, the reason why I bring up Jeremy is only because everybody knows this. Everybody knows this from Live on Two Legs, and if you've been paying attention lately, we put out a deprogrammed on the live compilations that came out this Monday. What that is we went through all 5 compilations and picked 20 songs apiece to narrow it down to 10 Pearl Jam live songs that you want to give to people to listen. This version of Do the Evolution, spoiler, did not make it very far. However, everybody knows how it starts.
That's an old song, this is a new song. It's Evolution, baby. You see how it is?
This is another one where the batter gets into the box and Ed's like, all right, I'm going to just smoke 100 mile per hour fastballs at you and you're going to swing and miss every single time. That's what this version of Do the Evolution does. It's just fast, it's fierce, as every great aspect to Do the Evolution in it. And we've been listening to it for so long. It's been such a high spotlighted moment for 24 years that it's just undeniable.
Yeah, I 100% agree. One of the best. And like watching the video too, you get to see Ed kind of dancing around at the end, and another fantastic Stone solo. Like, this is a great Stone show as well. When it's a good Stone show, it's a good everyone show. And those are often some of the best. And like, even near the end of the song, he's up at the front of the stage, which you almost never see.
Right.
He usually kind of hangs back by his amp and like stays in his little zone. He's out in front at the end of this, like, yeah, give me the spotlight. So yeah, absolutely a highlight. We're 12 songs in at this point. Probably 10 or 11 of them could be highlights, big moments from the show. This is just nonstop so far.
thing that I really noticed about Stone in the solo sections, both of them, I always mention the tone of his guitar and how definitively Stone Gossard it is, and I thought that this version was exactly exemplifying it. It feels a little bit clean, it feels a little bit crisp, and has that little twinge of a buzz somewhere in there. It's got a little bit of that dirt on it, however, it has kind of a clean outer, but like sort of an interior of this got some intensity, this got some bite to it. So yeah, Stone is definitely a highlight in a lot of these songs, and I think Yield might even be one of his best records to play on. So
I'm not a guitar expert, but I would be interested to see, someone who knows more about, guitar kind of technical aspects of things. I 100% agree on like his tone and everything, but there's a weight to it and like a resonance to it. And I wonder if that comes from like how he plays. There's got to be something like some talent, something unique in the way that he plays. Like I said, like it's something where you can tell, like, yeah, that's Stone. We kind of glossed over Jeremy, but Stone and Mike on Jeremy, just A+, fantastic. Just putting on a guitar clinic, the two of them together. It's very, very well done.
Following those two, Dissident is there. I had really no notes on Dissident. If we want to just kind of
gets a big crowd reaction, kind of a little bit, and
it's a radio song at that point, of course.
And it had a little tension to it. Like it usually Dissident is sometimes kind of loose and like a little playful, a little bit. Like they kind of like don't take it as seriously, but this one felt tight and like felt like they were on the front foot on it, and like. Yes, he does the little spoken part at the outro, but it's not. It didn't seem thrown off. It didn't seem lazy. It felt like he was kind of pushing it a little bit. This is a very good version of Dissident.
I don't know. I think Dissident is where I guess my mind sort of wandered a little bit in the set, but it picked right back up. I feel like Present Tense isn't a 1998 song at all. When you think of like Present Tense and the eras that it was prominent in, of course, 1996, which it didn't get played a lot in 1996, but when it did, it turned heads. But like it's more like 2006, what they did with it in 2006, and how it becomes the crowd song then, and it's really a late bloomer in that aspect. But 1998, they're still on top of it during this. Like this is just so delicate and so deliberate to start, and then it just has that perfect burst once it gets into that second chorus and the drums really kick in and you get the gas on it. Oh, it just Ed's waking you up at that first, like freaking phenomenal. The big build in the bridge too gets really tense and very epic, and this is where Matt's just kind of holding back a little bit before it explodes, and then he's putting on the gas. It's just very good. Also on this, Ed has his guitar on the whole entire time, which usually doesn't happen. He usually puts it on once they get to the bridge in this, but this one he had his guitar on the whole way.
This one for me is the one that I felt like missed a little bit. I think he's mumbling at the beginning, like he kind of forgets the words a little bit, like he's not confident. And then it gets a little rough early on. They do pick it up, like everything you said from the build and the outro, all that stuff is fantastic. They do get to it and get to a good space with it, and it does end up being a very good version. But it's not going to be one where you're going to be like, this is one of the best versions of Present Tense I've ever heard. It doesn't live up to the high bar that the rest of the set was setting, I think.
They only played it 11 times on the US legs, so, and this being the third and probably the third time that they ever did it with Cameron, so I can see that there would be some growing pains with it. But look, I loved when it was able to explode. I was in on it the whole way. I didn't see any of that sort of struggle that you were talking about. And I even kind of heard a little bit of something with the bass at the end. Did you hear what Jeff was doing at the end with that? It felt different, but I couldn't put my finger on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was an excellent performance. I really, really liked this version of Present Tense. Now we get to the final three of the main set, and these are just... I don't think you can ask for better final three to close a show in 1998 or to close a show nowadays. I think we talked about a set that closed with Rearview Mirror into Go at some point. I don't remember when it was.
Yeah.
And I think I remember really liking it then, and it was just a reminder in this show how much I really, really loved it. And of course, Spin the Black Circle's on the front of that, which this is just a three-headed monster to finish this up. Jeff and Mike are jamming a lot at this show, and I think Spin the Black Circle was the one that you were able to kind of see them get together and really start to gel. And then, of course, at the end, Ed wrestles Mike to the ground. This is kind of like what we were talking about back in Den Haag or the Utrecht show, where Ed was just wrestling Mike during a solo or something like that, and Mike didn't miss a beat. And then Ed actually starts to spin him around, just like
the vinyl record.
That's right.
The vault vinyl that you should be breaking out and listening to after this.
Everything comes full circle, folks. See what I did there? Very, very good version. Very good version of Spin the Black Circle. And going into Rearview Mirror, I think this was very similar to another one that we've covered recently that I was feeling a lot of like kind of Who vibes from it. I don't think that this was the one that sort of sounded like We Won't Get Fooled Again that I'd brought up, but it sort of had almost like that Pete Townsend twinkle in his guitar, if you know what I mean. Like it had that vibe to it. And then, of course, the roller coaster ride to get to the end and build to that is very, very good. And I think that the ending, what's making the big lasting impact would be how they're just jamming out with the strobe light going on. I think it was a great visual back then. It's a great visual now. It's something that's stuck around throughout the duration. They're just phenomenal visuals.
Yeah, I think the bridge here, and you talked about, mentioned Sonic Youth opening some of these shows on this tour. This one, the bridge was very introspective and it got real quiet at one point. It had a little bit of like Sonic Youth vibes to me, like not when they get like, weird and noisy, but Sonic Youth can do that. They got those dynamics where they can get kind of quiet and bring things down. This sounded like that. It wasn't like a big triumphant Rearview Mirror. It felt very like kind of enclosed and insular a little bit, but again, still very good.
I think most people that kind of understand the trends that might be in the crowd or might be listening to this on a boot think Rearview Mirror, and then let's see what they got next after a little break. But no, we're finishing off with Go. About this is, I think it is beating the expectation of what you kind of know from Pearl Jam sets to be, and then also the emotional roller coaster that Rearview Mirror is on a nightly basis, where when it ends a set, you're sort of drained, you're sort of wiped out, but going into Go is almost like a very quick adrenaline boost right after Rearview Mirror, and it feels like that picks you up right away and puts you back into like just a fired up energy. And I'm not saying that Rearview Mirror doesn't. I think Rearview Mirror is a lot heavier of a song because it lasts longer. Go is like a 2.5, 3 minute song. Rearview Mirror can go on for like 6-7 minutes. I think that the difference there is that it's almost tired, like you're captivated the whole time. It's almost tiring, but Go wakes you up right away and puts you in the state of like, whoa, how fast was that? They just ripped through it, and then they leave. I think that fires you up, and that gets you kind of back to a more energetic sort of mindset going into the encore.
Yeah, Rearview Mirror is kind of controlled chaos a little bit. Like it does get chaotic at the ending with everything kind of especially the drums just speeding up and going, and like builds to that amazing ending. But it does feel very controlled. It feels like you're on this ride, you know what's coming, and Go is just unleashed chaos from the very beginning. Especially, we've talked a lot about Stone and Jeff and Ed, but Mike here on Go is just like, okay, guys, like, I got this one. I'm going to take this over. And especially, like, when Go closes the set, you can count on it being a really big Mike moment. And it's like getting in one last punch before the bell rings, right? It's like rearview mirror, you expect it to be like, oh, okay, now we're going to get a breath. And then right as you think that, here they come back with like this just sprint to the finish. Yeah, it's just a very, very well done. I love when Go closes sets. It's always a highlight.
And the boxing analogy is perfect there because the Forum has held so many famous boxing matches too.
Sure.
So there you go. All right, we're at the encore now. Time to pause for station identification. Look, we talked in the beginning a little bit about what the Patreon content is going to be, and that is going to be the reviews and the recaps and like almost instant reaction. I think maybe we dub that series like your almost instant 2022 tour reaction. I think when it comes to Europe, when we do Europe, because those are going to be in the middle of the day, I think we'll have more instantaneous reaction to those shows. And that's a little bit of a ways away, but we'll figure it out in between now and then. But we have some people to thank this week because there were some very, very generous people that both joined Patreon and donated to Venmo, which is just helping out the documentary project that we're doing, which we're so thankful that people want to be involved with that and are interested in that. So let's thank some of the people that donate to Venmo first. And some of these are longtime patrons, and some of these people I had never heard before. So again, a lot of people want to pitch in, a lot of people want to help. So first of all, thank you to James Bateman for a very, very generous donation. Thank you so much. That was great, and we hope we get to see you out on tour. And then Jason Corbin, of course, has been a patron since like the very, very beginning, and he's he loves what we do, and he's very, very supportive. So thank you so much to Jason, and we're hoping we get to see you out in MSG. And Amy Wynn. And Amy Wynn's another one that I seem to talk to at least once or twice a week, and she's always asking questions about the show. And when you're asking questions about the show, that's exactly how you should be intaking the show, is just have other questions to ask on top of things and think about the songs in different lights. That's the way to do it. So thank you very much, Amy. And then Maureen Osk, thank you very much to her too. Again, she sent me a very, very nice message saying that she sometimes falls asleep with her headphones on listening to us.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, that's fantastic. I appreciate that so much.
Well, I know my voice isn't very soothing, but you kind of have more of a gentler touch to you.
I've done some radio in the past. I got a little bit of that. I'm no Brandon Palomo, but I can hold my own a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've done my fair share too, but I think up here, where radio and sports talk radio is so prominent and just everybody shouting at one another, I think a lot of my style probably came from that. I'll just say that much. Let's thank some new patrons as well. Eric Stevenson Gonzalez, a great friend of the show, and he's been pitching in and helping the Live on Four Legs Concertpedia writings from the very, very beginning. He does a very good job, so I'm so glad that he's on board to this and he's helping out. He's a great guy, so thank you very much, Eric. Vicky Castellanos, thank you very much to Vicky joining up on the bonus leg tier. And John, we have a brand new Horizon tier member. Can you believe that? Like, that almost never happens.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Jeremy McBurney. And look, Jeremy, get in touch with us. You have an episode request for a show in the future that you're going to get, and you're going to get a profile episode at some point in the future as well. Stay in contact. Let's get all this stuff in for you, because the quicker we get this information, the quicker I can put it onto the schedule, the quicker you'll be able to have what you're looking for. So again, huge thank you. Not a lot of Horizon Leg patrons kind of come through, and it's just very humbling, and everybody that decides to donate and just take their time with this is just extremely generous, and we can't thank everybody enough. Like
Absolutely.
I mentioned, it's over 130 people. That is overly overwhelming, and it just, every week that we come on here and we mention people, it grew from that to that in just a week. And again, growth is so important, and we can't grow on our own. Let's just put it that way. Can't grow on our own. So thank you to everybody doing that.
Yeah, thanks Eric and Vicky and Jeremy. Make sure you go back in the archives, the Patreon archives, check out all that content. You can go to liveonfourlegs.com. If you log in, you'll be able to listen to everything there. Or you can go on the Patreon app and go find everything that we've done. But, hours and hours and hours and hours of content. Hopefully you guys get a chance to go check that out.
Very least, hopefully you guys get to listen to the reaction episodes. So if that's what you're there for, then hopefully that'll make it worthwhile. One last thank you, because it's really a mistake that I made last week. I had thanked one Laura Cushman last week when I should have been thanking a Lauren Cashman. I really botched that. I'm sorry. Lauren, who I got in touch with last week, and very, very nice, very friendly, and can't wait to meet her in Toronto. Thank you very much for a generous donation as well. So
Great.
Everybody, patreon.com/liveonfourlegs if you want to join and get all those exclusive things that we were talking about before. And most of this month is going to be instant reaction sort of stuff, or not so instant reaction sort of stuff. And then we'll get back to late night series. We'll get back to evolution stuff a little bit later. That'll be still on our plate. We're still talking some things through. But yeah, right now, what you're going to want to be waiting for is the instant reaction from the shows. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy that. All right, back to The Rock. Ed, after coming back on stage, says, all right, then I guess we should play here more often. But this is our last tour, so shoot, we've done it all. What's left? We've played with the Forum with X and Tenacious D. We're going to retire on top. A friend of mine named Mike Watt, who I call Watt, he gave me a book called The Alchemist, and it's about this idea that if you wanted something really badly, the whole world would conspire to make it happen. I'll quote a great fictional character by saying, you know what happened to the boy whose wishes came true? He lived happily ever after. That was a Willy Wonka quote. This song is not about LA proper, but it's about Reseda or something like that. And it's the longest title in our catalog. Elderly woman behind the counter in a small town.
I swear I recognize your face. Haunting, familiar, yeah. I can't seem to place it. Can I find a candle of thought to light your name? Lifetimes are catching on with me. All these changes take place. I wish I'd seen the place, but no one's ever taken me. Hearts and thoughts, they fade away.
My favorite kind of versions of the song is that it opens up with Stone sort of doing this beautiful blossom to it, and then it kind of kicks in, and it's, I don't know what you would call that, just a beautiful melody that kind of takes you seamlessly into the song. This is sort of around the time where they were starting to do 1 2 3 4 2 3, and I think that's what you get on the version that happened on Live on Two Legs. But you get this kind of version every now and again, and when it comes up, it's just a happy moment. It's a beautiful way to get you into this song and sort of sets the tone, and not just sets the tone for the song, but sets the tone for this 4-song run here too.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a little bit of kind of the mellower songs here a little bit. We've talked so many times about how they'll end with something hard and come back with something hard, and like 1998 was kind of a mix of like sometimes they would come back with fast stuff, sometimes they would come back with slow stuff. But this one you're getting a little more of the gentler side to come back on. But for Small Town, I think this was kind of the beginning of the big like hello, crowd reaction, and Ed even reacts to it here, like when the crowd like screams it back at him, he kind of like does a little double take, like, oh, okay, I hear you. And especially Live on Two Legs, I think that was a big thing. From this point on, that became more of a thing. I don't think before this that was kind of as big a moment as it became after, this 98 tour.
Yeah, and that's where the song kind of turns from just an acoustic, sort of something different that Pearl Jam doesn't usually do in their sets, to a song that is anthemic. And I think that they were trying to have that balance within songs, because we did a show from 1995 last week where the whole entire main set was nothing but just fast rockers, nothing but punk songs, and they didn't have a lot of differentiation in there. But Small Town at this time is one of the few that they could kind of toss in and be like, okay, this is where the set list can be balanced. And not just that, like, how can we make it a moment where the fans aren't saying that this is a transitional to get you into something better?
I have live footsteps pulled up when we're recording these, and sometimes, something will jump out at me. And look at this, like, Elderly Woman from the Versus record. Up to this point, this is the 64th performance, right?
I believe that, yeah.
And look at something like Daughter, which we're going to talk about in a minute, also from the Versus record. This performance of Daughter that we're going to talk about is the 185th performance of Daughter. But then after this show, Elderly Woman's been played 400 more times.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daughter's only been played about 350 more.
When you find your way with a song and you sort of mature into a song, and I think that's a lot of what this was with the Elderly Woman, finding ways to mature into it, then it kind of brings it all together. So yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
You got a little mini evolution on that one. We're going to have to expound on that at some point.
At some point, I think everything is going to have an answer to it. So yeah, absolutely. Better Man follows this up. What was interesting about Better Man, and I think we've kind of gone back and forth with Better Man's the last couple of weeks, with ones that have had extended tags and then ones that have been the radio single. I think last week when we did it on Sacramento was just pretty straight up, but then a couple weeks before that had the Romanza tease and things like that, so it was a little bit different. Now, what you're going to get with this version of Better Man is the very, very early onset of Save It For Later. However, it's not the Save It For Later that you kind of expect nowadays, which is Expand Upon It and really gets its own separate section in the song and becomes this call and response thing. Instead, they sort of seamlessly transition into the lyrics and then kind of build in a way back and forth to the Don't Run Away part, but it's not anything that's intentional like it is now, if you know what I mean.
Save it for later, you'll hit the deck, you'll get my house. Sooner or later, you'll run away, don't let me down. Save it for later, you'll hit the deck, you'll get found out. Save it for later, don't run away, don't let me down. Don't run away, run away, don't run away, don't run away, 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 don't let me down.
If you go to Five Horizons, there's a review that someone had sent in who was there. And, it's worth going to read. This is someone, I give a shout out to Darlene Patton. If she's out there listening, please
hope so.
send us an email.
Hi, Darlene.
But she wrote this review from Five Horizons back in the day. And when he talks about Better Man, Save It For Later, she says, Better Man, of course, got a huge reception, and the Save It For Later tag just extends the song incredibly. They should never stop doing that tag. Well, good news, Darlene.
They never stopped.
They never stopped. And it's just kind of like they had just realized, hey, the chords are the same. Like, we can kind of do this. And it's just kind of the Better Man jam with Save It For Later. And now, it's evolved into this huge, moment and like a big call and response thing and big, Ed's windmilling everything. But this is just kind of like, oh, your nice little tag. Yeah, it's interesting to see it, at this point before it became a big thing. This is one of the first ones, I think, in 17th or 18th time, looks like.
You have to think, even now, what they did at Ohana's Here Now, they
Right.
added on the tag of people have the power. So,
Right.
I would never say that the save it for later tag is over. Of course not. But now they're thinking kind of in ways, and I think the Earthlings did it like that too. They're thinking now in ways like, okay, other things that we should be expanding upon the songs, but how else can we do it? So, although Save It for Later is probably never off the table, it's had this massive run, and it sort of became the song within the song. And here, I think I like it best when it's just part of actual Better Man, and it doesn't feel like a second song. It doesn't feel like you need 10 minutes to make appropriate time for both songs, if you know what I mean. So yeah, this kind of version is what I really, really love out of it. Daughter comes next, and this is just, again, stuff that just sounds good, that fits and reaches the bar and exceeds it a little bit. Like, I think Daughter does exceed it, you know what I mean? Like, there have been other songs from this night that have reached that bar, that have felt very close to the average version or best version of this song, and Daughter, I think, exceeds it, and a lot of it might be due to the tags that come in the end too, but I think that the actual version of Daughter really kind of picks up. It has like a nice little progression on it, and the solo is pretty cool. You hear Ed kind of call upon for Michael kind of before that, so I really like this version, and I think that the tags are very interesting because the tags are songs that they never go back to. But I have to ask a question first, because the first couple lines that he's singing in this, bars on your window, Mexican holding hands, I couldn't find that lyric anywhere. So is that an X thing or not?
Let me see.
I couldn't find it on Google. I was not able to find that anywhere that I was looking. Because the other two that they're going to do here, of course, in Pearl Jam canon, is The New World, which was played a lot in 2004 with Tim Robbins when they were doing the Vote for Change tours and things like that.
Yeah, I must have missed The New World because I didn't hear any part of New World in this.
Okay, he says they must have been voted for a new president or something. That's the line he says. Yeah,
Okay.
it's in there. It's absolutely in there. Because, yeah, it was tough to catch. Because I think what happened was I was listening to the bars on the window, Mexicans holding hands. I'm like, okay, what is that? And because they said that line real quick right after that and kind of went back to the bars on your windows part, it was real taut. Like you had to be kind of on the ball in order to pick up.
Yeah, because there's a bar line in The New World.
Right.
Maybe he was kind of riffing on that.
Bars weren't open this morning. They must have been voting for, and that's the line before they must have been voting for a new president. So I guess it's sort of tied to something with that. But it feels like it's most likely an improv. But it feels, I don't know. Maybe he was just roaming around a neighborhood and he kind of got that visual. Maybe it was something like that. I have no idea. But again, New World is in the Pearl Jam canon, gets played full a lot in 2004, and then he also sings a little bit of I Must Not Think Bad Thoughts, and really gets a big, massive belt out of that one, which was very, very good.
Really good underrated X song, too. Like, X is not one of the big, kind of punk bands that got famous, but they might have been the best band out of those early kind of LA bands. They had a little bit of that of rockabilly feel, and like Exene and John Doe, very, very good. Like those first 4 X records, like hard to fuck with those. Like there's a lot of good stuff on there.
And a song called Los Angeles, which we might have played as the intro to this episode. Alive is going to finish out your first encore, and I think you cut to, middle to end here where Ed kind of just exhausts it and he says, "We made it. We're still alive." And I don't know what's going on in his mind when he says something like that, but I think it's just kind of still some of that sarcasm that sort of breaks out of him whenever he hears the song. And while the curse isn't broken yet, I think that it's starting to break here when Matt Cameron joins and the song really becomes something different.
I can see that. Yeah, Alive, they had a little bit made peace with a little bit by 1998. Like I said, the curse hadn't been broken yet, but it was on the way up. This Alive, like the first solo, I think Mike's first solo was a little bit
I was just
he was quite in the zone yet.
yeah, I agree.
But the second one is much better. I think
Right out of the
then you
gate.
get the War Pigs thing at the end.
Yep.
Very-
It just blasts out of the speakers, the second one. Absolutely. One song in Encore 2, and Ed addressing the crowd right before they get into it said, "Tonight X got to play in this building in their hometown for the very first time." And then he kind of looks at the crowd. He's like, "That guy's got a forum chair that it looks like he's taking home with him. A souvenir for the occasion. I might do that myself. Tenacious D got to play the forum tonight. We got to play the forum, and you did too. A long time ago, this band got to play here too, and we're going to play one of their songs. This show's going to close with Baba O'Reilly." And some of the echo on Ed's vocals that happened in Hiding comes back on this too. Sometimes you just sort of think about Baba O'Reilly being, the end and the party song and just kind of, okay, all right, show's over now, or it's really less of a bootleg moment and more of a you got to be there moment. But this version of Baba's really, really good. Just the way that the song soars, the way that the vocals soars well, there's a lot of bunny hops happening on stage and just good fun had by all, of course, but it just feels like it's a big moment at this, and maybe it gets taken for granted a little bit now because it's like, okay, either that or Free World, and that's kind of the expectation. But back in 1998, it feels rare enough where people aren't getting this at normal shows, and also Baba O'Reilly considered back then, and still considered now, I hope, to just be like one of the best classic rock songs of all time. So I think that this had more of a feel to it, more of a bite to it, and less like, we just got to close out the night, so to speak.
Oh yeah, everyone's just going nuts on this version. Like, this show doesn't feel like a Ledbetter show. Like, after this, after they put that performance out, you have to end this show on a bang. And with Baba O'Reilly, just from the beginning, I think the crowd too just insane on this. And there's a moment too, I think, going back to Five Horizons says, and you see Ed do this, he takes his, I think what looks like his beer or water, and he's kind of pouring it over the stage. And we don't see it in the video, but in the review it says that he does the knee slide with the guitar, the classic iconic Pete Townsend thing. But the strobe lights and everything, and the angle's not good, so I couldn't see it in the video. And then evidently he smashed his guitar.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I didn't see that smash, but at the end, his guitar is sort of draped over his back, and it kind of looks like it's a little limp. So yeah, I didn't get to see that. But one thing I sort of forgot, I mentioned the echo in his vocals. It had some Daltrey to it. It really did.
Sure.
It really did have some Daltrey, and I know that the vocals are a lot more growling, and Daltrey has a very clean vocalization style, but I think there was a lot of channeling that there, and if whether or not he was trying to pull it off like that, it worked on this. It really did. You don't get too many versions, especially nowadays when this is an every other night kind of song. You don't get too many versions where you can make that comparison. But yeah, back when his voice is just clean and crisp here, this is very good. All right, that closes this one out. Let's get to 3 moments. John, it's your turn to start first.
Ooh, tough, because I love this show. My number 3, I'll go with, how about Not For You at number 3? Then I'll go with Even Flow at number 2. And gotta be Brain of J, number 1. I mean, we talked about it early on, just maybe the best Brain of J I've ever heard.
I'm doing the 3-headed yield monster here. Number 3, In Hiding. Number 2, Do the Evolution. Number 1, Brain of J. I think the yield songs were in top shape at this show. Obviously, nowadays, not going to get repeat scenarios of those, especially something like Do the Evolution, where it's just all intense, all growl. Same with Brain of J. But yeah, this is a good show for yield songs, and they need that moment to show that they couldn't be beat at the show. All right, now we get to a rating. This could get interesting.
Well, before we do that, I want to say, I picked my 3 moments. Make sure you go to liveonfourlegs.com. Check that on Monday to read my making of a moment, where I'm going to do a deep dive into those if you want to check that out. My rating for this, and I did not expect to get this going in, this is a 10 out of 10 for me. I thought this show was fantastic. One of the best of this year. Absolutely one of the best vaults. Like, every song performed near perfectly, and everything you could ask from a Pearl Jam show.
There's a lot of shows that I go into, and I sort of listen to the first couple songs, and it's sort of in my head. I have this like meter running where it's like, okay, right here, I'm like, okay, I'm in the 8 spot. I'm like a 7, but it can be built up, and I kind of like, I reassess every few songs, like, where am I with this now? Where am I with this now? Somewhere along the line, 7 or 8 songs in, maybe after Not For You, I'm like, I'm at a 10 right now. And I don't know how this can go down. It really has to just fall apart for this to go down. And I was just enjoying it the whole entire way. I couldn't help it, but I saw no fault of it. I saw nothing but great versions of songs, nothing but great energy, nothing but me thinking the whole entire time that this was a perfect show to be immortalized as a vault. And I didn't waver. This is a 10 show. This is a Hall of Fame show right here. Happy to say it.
I didn't know if you were going to be there on this. I got to admit, I didn't know if you were going to be on board.
Yeah, no, I was. I really was. Yeah. And I think a lot of it might not be individual moments at the show, which there are many, but I think it's overall listening to a damn good show, just 22 tracks, a very short encore. It's a short show in general. It's a less than an hour 45 minutes. It runs about an hour 40, but front to back, it's got the idea of playing in a big venue too, where that kind of, if you're able to match that anticipation and you're able to bring your A game on that has a lot to do with getting a big rating for me. And yeah, at one point, like I said, I was just thinking, like, I see this as a 10 right now, and a lot would have to happen for me to come down on that. So, like I said, it'll be back in December in the Hall of Fame. We'll do it. Its rightful induction when we get there.
Yeah, well deserved.
All right, let's tee everybody up to what we're doing next week. Obviously, it's all vaults. So what happened with next week was I was originally thinking, okay, since we did LA this week, next week we would do Vegas. And then I looked at the calendar for a few reasons. I'm like, wait a minute. Next week is going to be the Oakland shows. The Oakland shows are happening on Thursday and Friday. So I'm like, okay, we now have another week for Vegas. Then I looked at the dates again and said, all right, what would go in place of Vegas for that if I switched it over to being released on the 18th? It would be Bellingham. And then I saw the calendar. Bellingham was on the 10th. And since Bellingham is a massive binaural show, Binaural's anniversary of release, the 22nd anniversary, is the 12th. So we're going to be sandwiched in between the anniversary of when the show at Mount Baker happened and the anniversary of when the album came out. So I don't think we could have planned that more perfectly, and we didn't plan it at all. So it all kind of amounted to what it did. Yeah, we're doing Mount Baker next week. And for anybody wondering, all of these shows as of a week ago, I did not have a single one of these on Vault. In my possession right now is Mount Baker. I have been looking for all of the vaults that I don't have, and I was able to win a what you would call a waffle on one of the social media sites, and thankfully came home with a very nice prize. And always look out for those gems. Always look out for those kind of gems. And
I've had all of these since as they've been releasing them, and yeah, I mean, we didn't really talk about this, but the packaging on these, the artwork, everything about it, like top-notch work on these. Like they do a really good job with these Vault vinyl releases.
Absolutely. We can get more into that next week. But hey, like we said, this is tour week. This is going to be tour month. The next couple weeks are going to be busy. They're going to be busy. There's going to be a lot of content, and maybe some content that you're not even expecting. There might be a couple episodes here and there that we're not going to talk about before we release them. This might be the most that we say about them. So just remember, the way that you keep up with it is to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or if you decided in the middle of this episode to bookmark liveonfourlegs.com, then you have that, because that'll be on the front page every time a new episode comes out. So look, if that's how you feel is the easiest way that you can keep in touch with this podcast and keep in the know of what we're doing, this is the best time to do it. This is the best time to subscribe on those platforms. And if you like this show, I suggest that you go and do that. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, we got a lot more to do. Again, like I mentioned, the next couple weeks are going to be super busy. So keep tuned to the Patreon, keep tuned for the reactions, and for all those that can't join Patreon at this time, there will be a point where we're going to put like a halfway point or an ending point episode out. We'll have on Monday of next week, we'll have the 2 LA shows reaction, and for Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll have the Phoenix reaction. So yeah, it'll all kind of come together pretty quickly. And next week, when we actually know what happens on the tour, we'll be able to talk about it a little more. So, all right, until we do, we thank you for tuning in. This may be the end. We're here, but not for much longer. And although we may be parting ways, miss you already, and I miss you always. What else do we have to say? Like, just if you're there, enjoy the shows. Enjoy the company, enjoy meeting people. The best thing about going to these shows outside of the music is being in the presence of people that are experiencing the same things that you do and talking to them and getting to see how they intake Pearl Jam too. Because yeah, it's a special thing. And I think that maybe through a lot of social media bullshit that's happened over the last couple of years and being kind of locked in the pandemic, this fan base has kind of seen some twists and turns in places, but when you get to go to the shows and you get to be right there with people, celebrating, talking to them, learning about them, enjoying what this band brings you, then yeah, everybody kind of comes together. This is when the community is at its best. I'll see you in Sacramento and Vegas. That won't be for a little while, but until then, hopefully we get to see you next week.
We made it.
50 meters to save some trees. We just want to save some trees. Don't say we didn't save some freaking trees. Party at Biodome? All right, let's go.
Buzz and Doyle are having a party at the Biodome? That's crazy. What are they thinking? How?
Wait a minute, what about our party? Won't be party.
Come on,
Going to Biodome.
Thanks for the back rub.